Welcome to BoneFire Foundations, Episode 17. What is included in the sinful life into which humanity has fallen? This is Dr. Kevin T. Goddard bringing you answers to the basics of Christianity. Today's question is, what is included in the sinful life into which humanity has fallen? The sinful life into which humanity has fallen consists of the guilt of Adam's first sin, the lack of original righteousness, and the corruption of their whole nature, which is generally called original sin, together with specific acts of disobedience that come from original sin. Messengers usually begin what they have to say by saying, "Do you want the good news or the bad news?" Well, let's begin with the good news of Jesus Christ. Paul writes to the Romans in chapter 5, verse 19, "For as by the one man's disobedience the many were made sinners, so by the one man's obedience the many will be made righteous." Yes, Adam disobeyed God, plunging us all into sin. But let's face it, we all would have made the same mistake. God gave a commandment to Adam, just like he does to us in the Bible, and we all violate all of those commands every day. But God provided a way to fix the relationship with him that we broke. The Son of God, Jesus, God from God, obeyed God the Father perfectly so that through Jesus we could be made righteous. In case we think that we personally aren't really all that bad, Paul spells it out unflinchingly in Romans 3, 10 through 18. Paul tells us, "As it is written in Scripture, none is righteous, no, not one. No one understands, no one seeks for God. All have turned aside, together they have become worthless. No one does good, not even one. Their throat is an open grave, they use their tongues to deceive, the venom of asps is under their lips. Their mouth is full of curses and bitterness. Their feet are swift to shed blood. In their paths are ruin and misery, and the way of peace they have not known. There is no fear of God before their eyes." First, we are continually, universally, and permanently evil. We have no hope in and of ourselves. Second, we have every opportunity to comprehend God's truth and righteousness, but we are so utterly depraved and rebellious against God, we will never submit to God of our own sinful will. So much so that we create our own false religions to escape the true God. Third, we have all turned away from God and spend our lives running away from God's way, much as a soldier deserts his commander and runs away from the battle. Fourth, no one does good, not a single one of us. We won't even choose God in our sinful state because that would be good. It takes a miracle of God to change our nature to turn and accept Him in faith, submission, and obedience. Now Paul lays it on thick. Our words and hearts are so dead and awful that our throats release the stench of death from within us. Our very words are poison seeping out of our hearts. Our mouths express the hatred in our hearts toward others. We are violent and bring about our own destruction, leaving pain and suffering in our wake. And worst of all, as Dr. MacArthur warns, we do not fear God with the proper awe of His greatness and glory, while dreading the results of violating His holy nature. Again, in Ephesians chapter 2, verses 1 through 3, Paul reminds us that we are born into a dead, sinful nature. The dead are trapped in the poison of the tomb, lifeless, unable to come to life, or be freed of their own accord because the dead don't know they are dead. That dead, sinful nature walks in the sin of the world, following Satan, satisfying our passions and desires in defiance of the command of God. "And you were dead in the trespasses and sins in which you once walked, following the course of this world, following the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that is now at work in the sons of disobedience, among whom we all once lived in the passions of our flesh, carrying out the desires of the body and the mind, and were by nature children of wrath, like the rest of mankind." The psalmist laments in chapter 51, verse 5, "Behold, I was brought forth in iniquity, and in sin did my mother conceive me." David knows his sin is his alone from conception. God is not at fault, nor is David's state unusual. All of humanity since Adam has passed on this fallen sinful disposition from father to child, generation after generation. Matthew records in chapter 15, verses 18 and 19, the words of Jesus about man's sinful nature. "What comes out of the mouth proceeds from the heart, and this defiles a person. For out of the heart come evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, false witness, slander. Jesus makes it clear that our very hearts are evil, so we are defiled by the very nature we are born with. This is not a popular teaching, for rebellious humanity doesn't want to have to be dependent on or subservient to God. Adam's very sin was to rebel against God's sovereignty and command, which corrupted human nature from that moment on. Because of this, we are born into the sin that gets passed down throughout humanity from Adam. Because humanity doesn't want to be bound by any rules or laws or God, they try to destroy God through a universe that happened by chance, a humanity that evolved from a single cell that somehow came to life suddenly in mud and acid, or a spirituality that tries to bury the true God under false religions that deny man's fallen condition or let man provide petty, meaningless works to appease impotent false gods, or paint God as a benevolent conspirator who winks and nods at sin and says, "Go ahead, enjoy yourself, don't worry about me." Or finally, a God who just loves everyone and everything, and as long as you believe in something, anything, you get a free pass, despite his intentions for your creation in the first place, because even though he is perfect, your way seems better now. Why would anyone want to serve such meaningless, impotent deities as those man has created for himself? In our fallen state, we purposefully fool ourselves as to our nature and God's holiness. What is included in the sinful life into which humanity has fallen? The sinful life into which humanity has fallen consists of the guilt of Adam's first sin, the lack of original righteousness, and the corruption of their whole nature, which is generally called original sin, together with specific acts of disobedience that come from original sin.